Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Alright everybody, welcome to the Justinmind Getting Started webinar. I'm Danielle Schneider and I'll be taking you through today how to become more familiar and acquainted with the Justinmind application. This is for those of you who are just starting out with Justinmind, maybe have opened the application only a few times. Those of you who would like to get some tips and tricks on how to become a better user of Justinmind, and those of you who are maybe find some confusion with the interface, don't worry about that. We are going to guide you through today how to make a basic prototype and become more familiar with the Justinmind interface. So here's just an overall agenda of what we're going to be going through today. So we are going to explore the Justinmind user interface, including all of our palettes that we have available for customizing your prototype. After that, we'll design a basic prototype using some of the widgets that we have available. We'll then add a basic interaction to our prototype through a link to event, linking from one screen to another that we've created. After that, we'll share our prototype with a stakeholder through our share function in Justinmind, and we'll add a comment to see how others can leave feedback on the designs that you've created. And as always, at the end, we'll have a question and answer session at the end. So if there's anything that you would like some clarification on, anything you may have found confusing, leave that question below and we will answer it at the end. And if you have any other questions, perhaps not related to this webinar in general, any bug reports, anything like that, you can go to justinmind.com/community and leave those there. But if you have a subscription with us, you can go to our customer support portal and ask a question there as well. We'll get back to you right away. All right, so let's get started with showing Justinmind. All right, so this is what you see right away when you open the Justinmind application and you go to create a new prototype. So right away, you'll be greeted with a bunch of different devices to choose from. We have web, iPhone X, iPhone X, iPad, Android, all of these different ones, including older versions of the iPhone. But today we're going to choose an iPhone X prototype to get started. And you'll see a few different options to start your prototype. You can start it just as an empty prototype. You can start it from an image that you already have. Say you were working with an image in Photoshop and you would like to start from that, have that be uploaded within your prototype as you start. You can start from one of the many examples that we have included, or you can start from another VP file that you may have created before. Today we're just going to start from an empty prototype. All right, so we're loading up the interface here. Okay, so here's the Justinmind user interface. If this may look a little different from the one that you see when you open Justinmind, that's because we're using the beginner mode, the beginner view here. You can adjust any of the views that you have to be seen, any of the palettes or customizable things to see. You can adjust those within the view menu. And right now you'll see that we just have a few of these selected, because we're not going to be using many of these palettes today. We're just going to be showing you how to become acquainted with the interface. So while we're here, let me introduce you to a few of the core things that we have in the interface. So this is the canvas right here. So this is where you will place all of the elements and the widgets that you have to create your design. Over here we have the screens palette. This is where you will see a list of the screens that you've created. Right now we just have one screen, so that's all that's being shown here. Down here we have the Widgets Palette. This includes all of the widgets that we've included. Including widgets that you can draw with. So for example, we have rectangles, ellipses. These are some of the more basic widgets. And then as we get down here, we have widgets with more functionality like input text fields and dynamic panels. But for today, we're going to be sticking with some of the more basic widgets. And as you become more familiar with the interface, as you work with Justinmind more, you can delve into some of those more advanced and interactive widgets as you go. The next thing I'm going to show you guys is the outline palette. So this will show all of the widgets that you've placed on to the canvas. So once you place a widget here, you'll then see that element reflected within the outline. And it works similarly to other applications outlines, in that anything you place on top will be above any element below it. So for example, if we place this paragraph and we place this text on top of it, we can see the text is above the paragraph. Anyway, so let's get started with designing our prototype. So let's head over to the Widgets palette, and the first thing that we're going to do is draw using a rectangle. So we're going to place this rectangle right here at the top. Extend that and make it a little bit smaller and change the color. And the cool thing about rectangles and many other shapes that we have is that you can actually write text within them. So right here we're going to write home, and while we're here we're going to change it to a bigger size, and we're going to change the font color. So as you can see up here at the top, we have a quick menu to adjust some of the properties of the elements that you've placed on the screen, on the canvas. All right, the next thing we're going to do is actually drag another rectangle on here and extend it so that it takes the entire width. Make it a little longer. Change the color. All right, the next thing is dragging an image on here. So with this image widget, you can double click and it will bring up a file browser where you can choose an image that you already have stored on your computer. That brings up this dialog to include the image in the prototype or a link to the image file. We're just going to include the image in the prototype, but if we were to choose linking to the image file, this would allow us, if we were editing this image in another application, Photoshop for example, if we made any changes to that image, they would be reflected in the image that we have in Justinmind. So we're just using a little wireframing looking image here just to get the basic idea of how an image might look. We're creating a very basic prototype here today. It has the wireframing look, as I said, so when you are designing your own prototype, you can go into as much or as little detail with each of the individual widgets as you would like. In this case, we're going to be taking it quite simple today, just to show you how you can first start using all of the widgets that we have available. All right, the next thing we're going to do is add a button. And this should be a good time to show you guys the properties palette. We don't have that currently on the screen, but let's go to View and select Properties. And now that palette has appeared here above the outline. So the Properties palette, as you might guess, gives you more detail into the things that you can customize about a particular widget. There are a lot of different things here that we could change. Today, we are going to change the color of the text. So we're going to change it to white. And then we're going to change the color of the background. We're also going to make this quite a bit wider, a little bigger. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is head down to border. And this is where you can set the roundness of a widget. So if you wouldn't like it to just be a straight rectangle, you can adjust the roundness. First thing you need to do is make sure that it has a border. We can set that to solid. So this has a solid one-line border all around it. And we're going to change the roundness to 20. So now this button here has some roundness to its borders. Alright guys, the next thing we're going to do is go back to this Widgets Palette, drag a text widget here onto the screen, and because this is a wireframe, we of course need to use this text placeholder. Change that to this text style, make it a little bigger, and we'll change it to, how about light? Okay. We're gonna actually copy and paste that below it. But this time we're gonna change the font to be a little smaller, and we're going to change it to be a little lighter. All right, let's continue here to build this basic prototype by dragging a paragraph onto the screen. I'm going to extend this a little bit. And we can double click to edit this. There is quite a lot of text here. We might not necessarily want all of that. So if we just do that, that gets rid of some of the text. We're going to change the text style. We're also going to head over to the properties panel and change the line height, because on a mobile interface you might want a little more space between, or really any interface you might want more space between those lines. You can make the line height a little bit larger so that you have more space in this paragraph. Alright guys, the next thing we're going to do is drag another text widget on here and title this one First Name. Make this a little larger. And let's change it to bold. All right, we're going to drag a new widget here that we have not used yet. We're going to go over to the basic part of a palette, drag an input text field onto the screen. So input text fields allow for user input during the simulation. I'll get to that in just a few minutes, but basically, when you simulate this prototype, anybody who's viewing it during simulation, whether that's you or if you share it to your online account, those who you have invited to be reviewers of that account can input using the keyboard, input text into this widget here during the simulation. All right, let's continue by just altering some of the properties of this input text field. This already has a border, but we're going to change it to be a little rounder, just so that it's not so straight here. All right, and as you might guess, we're making a form that you might input if you had a registration form. So we're going to have many other different fields that we're going to create. And to make that a little easier, we're just going to shift click to select each of these elements on the screen, we can see that they have been selected in the outline palette. You can select them there as well. And we're just going to copy and paste. We see that those have been added. Drag this down a little farther. And we'll change this to last name. Pretty simple so far. All right, let's keep going. The next thing we're going to add is a figurative address that you would input. Drag this down. Actually, it might make it a little easier if we write this within the properties palette. So we know that this is 812 pixels. So we can, let's make this about 850. A little lower than that. You can also adjust by using the down arrows. Okay, so let's change this to be address. Let's make this a little lower. All right, so this, just because we've been copying and pasting it, it has all the properties that we have already decided for the other input widgets that we've added. We're going to copy and paste this once again. Add it down lower here. There we go. Okay, let's set this to, let's do 950. There we go. Change this to be a little lower. All right, and just to make this a little easier to edit, we can zoom out a little bit to see a zoomed out view of the canvas. And we're going to add, actually, we're going to take this in a little bit. We're going to have this be city. Copy and paste here. Zip code. All right, just a few more fields for our list that we have, our form registration. Copy and paste. Country. One last time for email address. So this is how you might go about creating a form that you might have in your prototype. Pretty simple to do, just you wind up using copy and paste a lot just to, so you don't have to drag those widgets here and there. So while we're here and while we have all these input widgets included on the screen, on the canvas, let's go ahead and click on Simulate so we can see how this is going. So this, when you click Simulate, it'll bring up a menu or a browser that you can view the design that you've created through an emulator that we have, so it looks like you're viewing it on the actual device. So we can scroll through all of these elements in the canvas that we've placed. And as I told you guys before, with input text fields, you can click on them and it will bring up a keyboard, and you can input anything you would like into there. So we're just going to write my first name. There we go. So that's just a preview of how simulation will look. As you're working on your designs, you can feel free to simulate whatever you would like, just to see how things are looking in general, if you'd like to get a view outside of the canvas. All right, let's go back to the screen. And we're actually going to copy and paste this button and drag it down. A little lower. There we go. Okay. The next thing I'm going to show you guys is in more detail some of the widgets that we have available that are specific to a device that you choose at the beginning of creating your prototype. So we have down here, if we scroll in the widgets palette, we'll see that we have iPhone X or iPhone 10. And because we've selected the iPhone 10 device, we have a lot of different other examples and blocks and dialogues that we've created that you can use to kickstart what you're creating for your design. We have a lot of different stuff here to work with. So while we're here, because we don't want to have to bother designing each of these little things ourselves, we can look and see the status bar. You can drag it on top, right up top where it would be. Move it just a little bit. All right, looks pretty good to me. Scroll down and we're going to show you guys a few more of those in just a second. Gonna drag a rectangle down here and create some kind of social icons, for going back and forth, that kind of thing. So to do that, there are a few ways we can do that. We can go to the iOS icons, which includes all of those icons that I was just talking about. There are a lot of different ones that we have, all the ones that you might need, but of course you can create your own. And just so that we don't have to navigate through all of those, we're going to search up here. And we're going to search for left, and we're going to get a left arrow. While we're here, we'll make the width and the height a little larger. Let's make this 50 by 50. Okay. Let's go to right. Get a right arrow. Also make that a little larger. Okay. We're going to keep going. Let's search for chat. We'll also change this one to be larger. We'll choose heart. And the last one we'll choose is search. And lastly, the last one we're going to choose to change the size. All right. Move this just a little bit. All right. So as you guys can see, it didn't take that long, 25 minutes, including, beginning, just explaining you guys how to get started with Justinmind. So I would say, within 20 minutes, even less, if you're creating something very simple, you can create a design, a wireframe, or anything like that to show off your designs and really become more familiar with this interface and with how to create a design. There are a few more things I'm going to show you guys today. I'm going to show you guys a basic navigation event. But before that, we're going to add a new screen. We're going to label this screen 2. One thing you'll notice as we go to add this screen is that it shows you a dialog, a drop-down, where you can choose the device that you would like to use. So starting in version 8.4, we added the functionality where you can use a different device, many different devices within one file. In this case, we're going to stick with the iPhone X, but of course, if we wanted to choose web or a different device, we could. And that choosing a different device, maybe if you were choosing web, can be really helpful if you were if you would like to create a narrative that you would, a narrative of each of the different designs that you've created. Say you have one design for mobile and one design for web. You can include both of those designs within one file for those stakeholders to view, or even just for your reference. All right, we've created another device, and we'll zoom back in here. All right, let's look back up to the Widgets Palette. We're going to go to iPhone X, and we don't want to have to, in this case, just to show you guys this functionality, we're not going to design an entire other screen. We're going to instead just choose one that we already have created. So we're going to drag this up here, we'll lock on. You can see that all of these have been formatted so that they will fit the iPhone X screen. All right, let's go back to screen 1, and I'll show you guys how to create some basic events. So we're going to click on this button. It really could be anything on this page that you would like to add an event to. But in this case, we're going to click on this button. We're going to right-click, and this conditional menu will come up. We're going to click on Add Link. It'll show up this drop-down to choose which screen we would like to have this link be in reference to. So we're going to have this be to screen 2. So now if we click on this button during simulation, it will link to this screen, and let's give that a try. All right, we click, and here we are at screen 2. So really, with just a simple right click, you can make any element on the canvas interactive and have it linked to another screen. And there are many, many different other events that we have within Justinmind. As you become more familiar with Prototyper, you will explore those events as you go. But for now, and as you're just getting started, just using some link to events might be the best way to go. Alright guys, and there's one quick thing I want to show you, the last thing that I know many of you find would really like to see right in the beginning. So we're going to show you how to create a really simple parallax effect on this home rectangle. And it couldn't be for any element on the screen, but in this case, we're going to make it a header that will stay at the top of the screen and scroll with you. So the first thing we're going to do is, of course, select this rectangle. Then look to the Properties palette and go under Position. We're going to click on Display Pin Position Options. So that is checked. And we're going to, on the Y parameter, we're going to choose Pin to Top. And we're going to add a margin back to it. All right, so now when we simulate and we scroll down, this header will follow the scroll of the screen with this margin in place. Actually, before we do that, because this is one of the first elements that we created, we want to select this to be always on top so that it will not go behind any of the other elements that we have created on the canvas. All right, so here we see this home rectangle is following the scroll as a header would. Goes right up into place. There are a few tricks that we could put here to make sure that it covers these notches at the top. I won't show you that today, but it's quite simple. Just making some of these elements on top and adding a rectangle. Very simple to do. But just because I want to show you guys the very basics here today, I'm not going to delve into that. All right, guys, so that is the beginning of creating your design through Justinmind, but you may be using other applications to design your the look and feel of your prototype, but you want to use Justinmind to add the functionality. For those of you on Mac, we have a Sketch plugin that you can use within the Sketch application that you may have. So say we have this example loaded up in Sketch. Once you go to the Sketch plugins, you can manage plugins and get plugins, and you'll search for Justinmind, and you can import that right in there quite easily. Once you've done that, you can go to Plugins, Justinmind, Export Artboards Layers. It will load up all of the layers that you have, and you can select which ones you would like to include or not. You can choose the device you would like to export this to, and any other parameters. I've already done this, but just to show you guys how that would work. And once you do that, it will generate a VP file. You can see that over here. It will generate a VP file that you can load that up. And I'll show you guys the let's see. Well, in any case, you guys get the picture. It will generate a VP file that you can open. It's not opening right now, but no problem with that. You get the idea. So that's the Sketch plugin. If you're working from a Sketch file, you would like to import that design and not have to work with these, or if you would rather use that design instead of designing within Justinmind, you can do that. The last thing I'm going to show you guys today to get started is sharing, and sharing to your online account to get feedback. So if we go to share, and we click on share, we'll choose which account we'd like to store this to or share this to. We're going to create a new project. Call this webinar today. Why not? All right, then we can view it in our account. And it will load up the Justinmind online account that you have. And right here at this screen, we can see a few different options. One of which is to invite reviewers, so we can invite people to this prototype to review it, and they will receive an email with a link to this prototype, and they can go here and add comments. We can also set it to a public prototype, integrate it with usability testing tools, downloading it, download the HTML code, all of that sorts of stuff. And if we click on simulate, or we click on the project, we can see that it looks the same as that which we've designed in the application. And if we choose up here, we choose comments, we check that on. We can select an element here and leave a comment. Add that comment. And they will be notified that you have left feedback on your prototype. You'll see that comment here is illuminated by this number. Okay, guys, that is an overview of how to get started with Justinmind. I hope you guys found that really helpful for those of you who are just learning how to use this application. And that's the basics. All right, let's look to some questions that we have. Can I use multiple devices? Yes, so you can, as I showed you guys a little earlier, you can click on a new screen and choose a different device to use. So you can use any kind of different device. Let's go ahead and just create a web device just to show you guys. So we have that web screen included here. Let's see. How do you create an event to bring up a modal? So I'm assuming you mean like a little dialogue to create. And that is really simple as well. There are a few ways that you could do that, but one in particular, let's go to this web screen just because it's empty. All right, let's go back to our basic widgets. So there are a few ways that you can do this. Let's drag this button here, and let's pretend that this is the dialogue that you would like to create. So actually, let's drag another button here. So let's have this be like submit. And let's have this be confirm. So as if you were submitting a form. So what we're going to do is mark this as hidden. We go to the Properties palette, select that in the outline, and click on Hide Component. Next thing we're going to do is go here, and actually I'll take this opportunity to show you guys the Events palette. This can be an easier way to get started with creating events. So that's appeared over here. Once we have the element that we would like to trigger the event selected, we can click on Add Event. And right now we'll see that we choose the trigger. So this will show us what to do to prompt the action. And we're going to have this be on click. Now we choose the action, so this is the result of what the trigger will be. We're going to have this be show. And now we choose what target. We can choose this on a canvas, or we can choose on the outline. In this case, we're going to show this, and we can have an effect if we'd like. We can have this, lots of different ones here. But in this case, we'll just go without that, and we can finalize our event. All right, once we simulate, really easily, there it is. So in just a few clicks, we have created a window, or even in this case, just a button that will be shown when you click on a certain element. Let's see. More questions. I see some really specific questions here about really particular functionality. I can't get into those right now, but I would encourage you to send them to our community. They would take a little longer to explain in this format, but I encourage you to send them to justinmind.com/community and ask them there. There we can answer things in a longer format, text, question and answer, that kind of thing. We can answer them there, and we'll get back to you there right away. All right, let's get to some more questions. Where is the align tool? Great question. All right, so once we've selected something, we can go to edit and then align. And actually, we should select a few more things here. So if we go to align, we can align left, center, all of these different options. We can unlim at the top, match the width, match the height, all that kind of stuff. That's where that is. Can we see some shortcuts? Sure. So there are a few different shortcuts that you can use within Justinmind. The one that I most frequently use, which is common to many other applications, is just copying and paste. So if we shift click on these and we command or control copy, depending on your operating system, so command control V and C and V, there we go. Another shortcut I can show you guys is how to group. So say we have these two selected, we command or control G. And so these have been in a group. And this can be easier to label things if you are working with, say, a lot of different things that you would like to group within one labeled thing. So if we wanted to label this dialogue, we can double click and edit that, and then we can expand this so that it will show each of the elements that we've created in this group. You'll also see the screen dim to show you which elements are within this group and which are not. Let's see. Some more questions that we have. Is it possible for Justinmind to look at an image and populate the screen? I'm not quite sure what you're getting at there. If you have a follow-up, perhaps that might be something that you can explain in more detail by going to justinmind.com/community and asking that there. But yes, there are a few other more specific questions, and again, I would encourage you guys to send that to justinmind.com/community. Alright guys, so that is the basics of Justinmind. I hope you guys found this useful for as you're just starting to become familiar with the application and with the user interface. This will be recorded and sent out later, so if those of you who may be tuning in later, you can find this. The whole webinar that we'll have will be recorded and sent out. Alright guys, thanks so much for coming. Again, I'll mention it one more time. If you have any other questions that we didn't get to today, anything really specific, anything perhaps not related to just getting started with Justinmind, you can go to justinmind.com/community one more time. Or if you have a subscription with us, you can go to the customer support portal and ask a question there, and we'll get back to you right away. All right, thanks guys. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.